No, kedves 11-esek, a Horthy korszak folytatódik, és egy nagyon fontos rész kezdődik el most, hiszen túl vagyunk a trianoni békediktátum aláírásán, értjük már, hogy milyen nehéz helyzetben van ez az új kicsi ország. Első számú feladatunk az, hogy a Horthy korszak első 10 évét megértsük, ezt úgy hívják, hogy konszolidáció, azaz a rendszernek az élhetővé tétele és megszilárdulása. So now we are going to talk about the consolidation of the Horthy era, and within this period we have to get to know two prime ministers. One prime minister was Teleki Pál, but he was only prime minister for a year between 1920-21, and after his failure, the following one, Betlen István, is going to continue what he started, and he will carry out the consolidation of this period. But the Trianon Peace Treaty was signed, as you see, and life had to be restarted because we had the war, the Red Terror, the White Terror, and of course the problems of refugees. And this is when Count Teleki Pál became prime minister. He was a fantastic politician, an aristocrat. He was a conservative thinker. He belongs to the Austro-Hungarian monarchy political, the politicians from that period, and he survived the war, and now he wants to serve the country. Well, he did the first thing, that he tried to restrict all political extremes. So not extreme left and extreme right is not good for this country, they believed. So actually, for example, the communists, as you see, were banned. And communist leaders were imprisoned or they fled from the country. And it was the other problem, that the biggest social layer was peasantry, and the number of very poor peasants was very big. And this is why the strongest political party was the smallholders party, a kisgazda párt, with the leadership of Nagyatádi Szabó István. It is worth remembering his name as the leader of smallholders. So this is why Teleki had to pass land reform. But the problem was that in the country, the real power was still in the hands of the great landowners. So the problem was with this land reform, that the great landowners didn't want to get rid of their lands. So the poorest layers, those who didn't have land, still didn't get land. So the old system didn't change. Only bad quality lands were distributed, so the big great landowner knew what the worst quality lands he had, and they were distributed to the poor people. So the political and economic power of great landowners changed nothing. So same thing was there. In this chart, you can see the number of lands. This is the side of the land. Of course, the greatest landowners have this 10,000 acre and bigger, and these are the poorest layer. Look at the number. The poorest layer is in 1895, during the period of Austro-Hungarian monarchy, was still half of it. And now in 1935, this was a growing layer. So the poorest peasant layer was growing in Hungary. That was a very bad thing. And terület az összterület százalékában, also we can say that the great landowners' lands didn't shrink much. Actually, it was some great big landowners, the number increased, but the number of the smallest landowners also increased. So this chart shows that in Hungary the lowest layer didn't get any help from the government. The other topic connected to Teleki is the numerus clausus. We can translate it closed number, zárt szám. This was a law that he had to give out, but let's see what happened. So this government had to face a lot of crisis, economic crisis and social crisis after the war. Actually, all social layers were involved. It was a crisis period. And there were the 400,000 Hungarian refugees, most of them intellectuals coming from the employee sector. So these people who came from Czechoslovakia, Romania, and Yugoslavia, they came to Hungary, about 400,000 people, and they wanted jobs. And there was a competition on the market, on the labor market. They were intellectual people, once again, from the employee sector, and a lot of Jewish people were employed in this sector, in this employee sector. So in the country, anti-Semitism grew because Jewish people occupied these positions. This anti-Semitism was always restricted by the government, so it was never supported by the Hungarian government, but it grew after the war. There were some extremes, some extreme right thinkers that they wanted a change of guards. So they believed that a change should come, őrségváltásnak nevezték ezt a változást, amit szerettek volna. They wanted Christian and national intellectual layer, not a Jewish intellectual layer. And of course, the extreme right thinkers also knew that the Eszter Revolution, az őszi rózsás forradalom, and the Republic of Councils, a tanácsköztársaság, communist period, were associated with all the sources of the nation's grievances. So all the bad things came from this period, from 1918, 1919. And these were led by Jews. And actually, more or less, it was true. The communist leaders were all of Jewish origin in Hungary. So, the government did something, gave out a law. In 1920, numerus clausus, the close number law, was given out by Teleki, the Teleki government, and it said all the minorities, népfajok, are maximized in 6% at universities. So if you go to university, if you belong to a certain minority or ethnic group, maybe you won't get your admission. So the word Jew is not mentioned in this law, but actually they were mostly discriminated because their number at universities were the highest. So this was a discrimination of Jews without telling that it is a Jewish law. So it was not a Jewish law. They just wanted to give some kind of advance to the refugees who came home. This is why some of them had to choose a distant university somewhere in the countryside. Budapest was, of course, full of Jewish students. Itt van a szövege ennek a dolognak, azt hiszem érthető. Tudományegyetemekre, műegyetemre, blabla. A 2021-es tanév kezdetétől csak olyan egyének iratkozhatnak be, akik nemzethűségi és erkölcsi tekintetben feltétlenül megbízhatók, és csak olyan számban, amennyinek alapos kiképzése biztosítható. A felvételt kérők szellemi képességeire másfelől arra is figyelemmel kell lenni, hogy az ország területén lakó egyes népfajokhoz, és itt jelenik meg ez a szó, népfajokhoz és nemzetiségekhez tartozó ifjak arányszáma a hallgatók közt lehetőleg elérje az illető népfaj vagy nemzetiség országos arányát. Tehát amennyit az országban amúgy képvisel az az arányszám. So this is why Jewish people were discriminated, so they had to choose some other universities, not central universities or such. So the numerus clausus. How Teleki failed in governing. Charles IV, king of the Habsburg dynasty, the last king of Hungary, who was the king at the end of the First World War, wanted to come back to throne. Teleki Pál lost his premiership, a miniszterelnökséget így mondjuk angolul, premiership, in connection with the Habsburg attempt to get back the throne. So Charles IV made two attempts in 1921, one in spring and one in autumn, to return. The Entente and the surrounding countries were absolutely against this idea. So they believed that it threatened the surrounding countries' safety. So these countries threatened Hungary with military intervention if he gets back the throne. This is why Horthy also refused the idea. So the first time in spring, Horthy met the king and told him that it was not the perfect timing to return. He accepted it, that he didn't come. But in autumn, there was a small army that was recruited to support the king. They are called the Royalists. And these Royalists were defeated in the Battle of Budaörs. So there was a fight at Budaörs against Charles IV. What happened? The Entente pressure came, and finally the government had to declare the dethronement of the Habsburg dynasty from the Hungarian throne. Ha valaki nagyon ügyes, meg tudja mondani, hogy hányadszorra fosztják meg a Habsburgokat a trónjuktól, és erre gyorsan válaszolva is, először Rákóczi szabadságharc, Ónodi országgyűlés, másodszor 1849 a szabadságharc alatt, és most, de ez már végleges. So finally, the Habsburg dynasty is dethroned. Teleki didn't refuse the king's return, so Horthy dismissed him. Actually, he lost his premiership. These are some pictures. This is the king just examining the army, and when they returned, there was a mass celebrated to the royal family and the military leaders. This is where the king and wife participate in the mass. And of course, when he had to leave Hungary, and all the family, of course, in Austria they didn't get power, in Hungary they didn't get power back, so they went to exile. They settled down in Madeira, a beautiful island. This picture was taken in Madeira. As you see, the Habsburg family has a lot of children. And this youngest children, the youngest boy, was Habsburg Otto. In this picture you can see him at the change of regime. In 1989 he was here, and of course in 2004 when we joined the EU he was also here, and I can tell you Habsburg Otto could speak Hungarian. So the family who lost the throne and had nothing, no connection anymore with Hungary, taught even the youngest boy Hungarian language. And Otto was a great diplomat of the 20th century. And when he died, his heart is buried in Pannonhalma Monastery in Hungary. So their connection with Hungary never changed. So they believed that Hungary was part of their history. A Horthy korszak konszolidációját itt félbehagyjuk. A teleki kormányt megértettük, hogy hát sajnos nem folytathatta, ezért a királypuccs miatti gondokkal küzdött, tehát ezért nem folytathatta a miniszterelnökségét. Munkáját Bethlen István folytatja, aki azt hiszem még nagyobb nevet fog szerezni a történelemben, mondhatjuk ezt is, hiszen ő fogja végrehajtani a Horthy rendszer helyreállítását, konszolidációját. Jegyzetünk itt most még csak a 215-216. oldalon található, úgyhogy jó munkát kívánok, ezen a héten tehát konszolidálunk.